Now let's take a look at the basic components of a forklift truck and what their purpose is. We'll start at one end and work our way around. Here we will primarily focus on sit-down type lifts. The forks, usually 42 to 48 inches, but can be longer or have extensions added to them to give extra length. The carriage. This is the part that the forks or other attachments ride on and has notches so the forks can be repositioned and set in place. The load backrest looks like a headboard on a bed. It is designed to keep materials from falling through the mast. The mast. This operates much like a telescope where you have several channels of steel that raise up and then collapse down, where they rest, nestled close together when lowered. The most common is a 188-inch lift height, triple stage. However, there are many different configurations, such as 2-stage and 4-stage with varying lift heights. The overhead guard. Its primary function is to protect the operator from falling objects or loads. In a tip-over, it can also be deadly. The controls. Most controls on a sit-down type lift are set up this way. The raise and lower is closest to the driver. The tilt function is usually the next lever out. And finally, if there is an attachment like a side shifter, it is the furthest lever out. Other attachments may even require a fourth lever. The purpose of a side shifter is to be able to adjust a load side to side so that you don't have to back up and then reposition the lift, saving time and adding safety. The dashboard. Much like a car, with all the critical engine or battery information such as engine temperature, oil pressure, and fuel level, etc. Refer to your owner's manual for more details. The directional control. Most forklifts have very simple transmissions. Forward is for going ahead, the middle is for neutral, and back is for reverse. Pretty simple. The pedals. Again, much like a car, with the accelerator pedal on the right, brake on the left, and some forklifts have another pedal that many confuse as a clutch. This is not a clutch. It is a secondary brake that some call an inch brake. Read up on this in your operator manual for specifics on your brand of forklift. Steering. It turns the forklift, but keep in mind, a forklift steers with the rear wheels, not the front, which will be addressed later. The counterweight. This is what gives a forklift much of its carrying capacity. Sit-down lifts are often referred to as counterbalanced lifts. It offsets the load it carries and is essentially a large mass of iron.
The joystick. Most commonly found on stand-up type lifts such as reach trucks, integrate lift, lower, tilt, reach, and side shift. But unlike sit-down forklift controls, which are pretty standardized, joystick setup will vary radically from manufacturer to manufacturer. Like all rules, there are exceptions. Earlier, we discussed the inch brake. However, some of these gray market forklifts, which often enter the U.S. by way of dubious means, usually from the Far East, have manual stick-shift transmissions, so the pedal to the far left actually is a clutch. This particular lift also has a 2-stage transmission. Be warned, they are rare, but do exist. Now let's discuss the basic differences between forklift tires and how they affect safety. Essentially, there are two types, cushion and pneumatic. Cushion tires, and don't let the name fool you, are basically a hard, solid piece of rubber pressed onto a rim. And if you have ever run one of these lifts over an obstacle in the road, you know there is not much cushion at all. In fact, you're lucky if you keep your fillings. Pneumatic tires are a little different. They are air-filled, much like what is on your car or truck. Here's the different surfaces these trucks operate on and how they relate to safety. Pneumatic tire forklifts often get into more accidents because untrained operators falsely assume they can handle severely rough terrain, such as construction sites, ditches, curbs, extreme grades, and the like. Typical operating environments include lumber yards, brick and pipe yards, home improvement or construction supply, sign or utility companies, or any outdoor facility that has hard-packed dirt, asphalt, or concrete as an operating surface. Keep in mind, though, these surfaces may be slightly rougher than a concrete floor in a warehouse, but not by much. They still require relatively flat and even terrain. When operating any forklift on unfamiliar surfaces, always do a pre-operational survey and inspection of the site, and when in doubt, seek the advice of some safety authority. This, on the other hand, is a typical cushion tire lift application. Make note of the floor, smooth and even concrete. This would be a typical environment for a Class 1, 2, or 3 powered lift, such as a reach lift, order selector, or 3-wheel sit-down electric. Cushion tires are very limited to where they can safely operate. So why do the manufacturers even make these tires? Partly because there is a trade-off. What you sacrifice in surface versatility, you make up for in turning radius. That being said, it is amazing where these lifts can get into trouble. Surfaces such as asphalt can be deceptive. A while back, during a training session on a 100-plus degree day, a cushion tire forklift making a right-angle turn made pretty short work of an asphalt yard, creating a huge pothole after just a few turns. Often, when two differing surfaces come together, such as concrete and asphalt, or asphalt and dirt, it usually creates an expansion joint or edge that can literally bounce a load right off the forks. When approaching any uneven surface, such as a railroad track, or as in this case, a guide rail, always approach at a 45-degree angle. Cross one wheel at a time at a very slow speed, keeping the load just high enough to clear the obstacle.
A Class 5 forklift should never be confused with a Class 7 forklift. Just because it has pneumatic tires does not mean you're going to be able to compete in the Baja 500. Survey unfamiliar areas prior to operation. When in doubt, don't operate the forklift on terrain you feel is unsafe for your particular class of forklift.